Hello. Are you someone dealing with uncertainty, balancing different requirements of life, feeling anxiety and stress? Fixing anxiety is crucial for numerous reasons, as anxiety can significantly impact a person's quality of life, relationships, and well being. Would you like to learn some effective tools that you can implement right away to improve the quality of your life by reducing your anxiety and worries? Then you're in the right place. Our guest today is going to share the keys to effectively reduce anxiety and empower you with invaluable tools for a calmer and more centered life. Welcome to Happy and Healthy Mind program, episode 136. I'm your host, Dr. Rozina Lakhani. I help proactive people prevent and treat burnout, anxiety, and depression. I have been serving for last 26 years as an MD psychiatrist with specialty training in integrative and personalized medicine. And I believe that the stress is the core root for many of these mental and physical problems. So we share tips for managing stress, optimizing mental wellness, so you can eliminate the stress-induced burnout, develop mental resilience to prevent illness, and live your best life with hope, health, and happiness. This program is for educational purposes only, so please consult your healthcare provider for any medical advice. And I'm so excited to share our guest today, Dr. Faust Ruggiero. He's a psychologist who has been in private practice for over 35 years. Didn't you say more than that? I think you said 45 years?
45, yes.
Yeah, this bio must be old. Thank you for helping people over the last 45 years. And before entering the private practice, he worked in clinics for deaf children, prisons, nursing homes, substance abuse centers, inpatient facilities, and he's a consultant for major national and international corporations. He's a published research author and professional clinical trainer. In summer of 2016, he began to develop the Fix Yourself Empowerment series based on a process life program to help readers address difficult situations in their life. The series currently includes the Fix Yourself Handbook, the Fix Your Anxiety Handbook, the Fix Your Depression Handbook, and the Fix Your Anger Handbook. And he just told me that he is starting to work on his next book. So I'm really excited. Let's jump in, learn from Dr. Faust. Thank you for joining us today.
Dr. Rozina, it is a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So tell us, how did this topic become important in your life?
Well, I've been in the mental health field for all these years, and got to about 40 years. I said, I really want to turn this outward and start getting to numbers of people. So I wrote the first book. But what I found practicing was, you're taught so much in school, and then you start practicing and you realize that there are certain things that over and over begin to show themselves. So I wanted to put a program together using the steps people could take, the processes people could take to get from the point where they're confused and conflicted and full of anxiety or depression, and get to the point where they're in recovery of those items. So that's what the texts are all about. It's a journey to get from one point to the next.
That's wonderful. Did you experience some of these problems yourself, or can you tell us a story of a client whom you may have worked with about
Yeah.
these issues?
I come from a family that has a lot of anxiety in it. And I had that as a child. Of course, we didn't know what it was. And later, as I was going through life, I started to realize that the anxiety would come along. And of course, my brain would say, well, let's try to fix this. So I'd go try to find what I was anxious about, not realizing that the first thing I had to do was focus on my body and getting that calmed down. And, in healthcare, in mental health, I watch therapists do this all the time. They say, well, let's talk about what you're anxious about. And I think that's backwards. I think we have to go to the body first. And I always tell people, if think about a time when you were anxious, you're worried about something, if you could calm your body down, then the emotions go down with it, and your intellect can engage and start looking at some of the facts you need necessary to start putting a plan together to deal with that. So for me, I go to the body first.
But tell me a little bit, before you learned these techniques, and applied in your life, how was anxiety impacting your life? Like, did it have any negative effects on your life before you applied these tools?
Absolutely. I was a person who didn't realize how much internal strength I had. When anxiety would hit, I thought of myself as a weak person. Something would happen and that would flare up and I would say, oh, I can't do that. I need to go away. And then I'd see as a young person, other kids or other young adults, they're going right into it. And I'm saying, I know I can do all that, but yet I can't. I can't put myself in there because as soon as I did, I didn't know what was going to happen. Was a panic attack going to come along? Was I going to, feel that emotion? And I didn't want to, as a young 12 or 13-year-old, I didn't want to cry in front of other boys. I didn't any of that because the emotion would just flare up. So I had no idea what it was, but it turned my life into something that the avoidance factor, I wasn't approaching anything. I was avoiding everything I could avoid and fear of everything. And I'm a weaker person. And after a while, you start to believe that about yourself.
Right, right. So you lost opportunities because of that, and then you started kind of having more lower self-esteem because of those thoughts. And so would love to learn some of the tools that helped you and a lot of your clients. How did the life change after you applied some of the tools?
When I started to realize, and here's how it progressed. I was fearful of something. I was going to go into it. I was anxious. Then the event would occur. I'd be in it and I'd say, I'm doing just fine. What was I worried about? So now I know I could do these things. Why was I so afraid to jump into it? And it could be something simple. We were going to go to a get together, a wedding, whatever it may be. And I'd be thinking about all the scenarios when this person came along and what would I do if, and I know this isn't going to go right. And you start to realize you're so worked up. The internal language was spinning and it was all negative. And then I would get there and I was wonderful. I'm very social. I talk to everyone, hug, shake hand, do whatever. And I said, okay, now I've kind of made that next step. I know I can do it. Why am I so fearful out here? And then it hit me. My body was getting all tensed. And I didn't understand that that's what it was. I thought it came from my head and went to my body, but it was my body that was saying, I can't. And then my mind was trying to find a way to deal with that. So it avoided everything.
But so, like, once you started facing your fears and controlled your anxiety, do you find that now you're able to utilize more opportunities, or were there areas where if you would not have controlled the anxiety, you may have missed out in life?
Yeah. Now probably the last 20 years, it's completely different. When that happens, I understand it as the body first. So I started doing things, which answers your question. I started doing breathing exercises, but not just when I got anxious. I do them all the time. So I keep my mind focused on something I'm doing in the present, and my body is decelerating when I do that. I meditate, so that helps. That calms the body down. The other thing, and it was the big one, was the internal language. When it got to the point where I would say, I'm fearful of something, I know that's going to be, and then I'd stop. I'd say, stop that. It's going to be just fine. I'm going to do well in that. I'm going to be able to perform just as I should, and I'm also going to enjoy myself. When I started to calm the body down and I changed that internal language, that took care of 80% of it. It really did. Every now and then there's something to be anxious about. That's real, but not all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So now you're able to stay calm and enjoy your life without having that fear and not avoiding all the
Absolutely.
opportunities that come your way. Well, that's wonderful. Our audience would also love to learn some of the tools. It seems like you already started sharing some of the tools. So let's kind of jump in some of the detail. Maybe let's kind of pick three most helpful tools that you have found helping in your clients' lives, and maybe we can use a story of how those techniques help. So let's start with like the first most important tool that you have found.
Is that body. It's just what I did. When I say it's not only calm your body down, it's keep your body healthy.
Okay.
The way people structure their lives, they don't sleep well. Their diets are, it doesn't matter how much I tell them eat what you want to eat, but eat it in moderation. Watch your sugar and your caffeine and all those kind of things. If you have anxiety and you have 3 cups of coffee in the morning and then you have an energy drink in the afternoon, you're not helping yourself. So let's
Right.
get a good diet in there. If you can exercise, even if it's walking, put that in the plan and try to get up and get to sleep at the same time every day. Our bodies like a routine.
Hmm. Hmm.
So let's get a healthy body first.
Okay.
That's the first thing I tell them. The
So
second
healthy
thing,
body, let me kind of
go
and
ahead.
be a little double advocate and be like a patient. So, okay, I am a person who is struggling with anxiety, and I come to you and you tell me, eat regularly, eat healthy in moderation, and sleep on time. And I say, Doctor, I feel so anxious every time I try to go to sleep. I'm not able to sleep. And then when I try to eat, like, when I'm really anxious, I have these butterflies in my stomach, so I don't feel like eating. Or sometimes I feel so anxious that I keep on eating to kind of calm down. What can I do? It's really hard for me to sleep on time or eat on time.
First thing I ask them is, are you having a continuous ruminating thought? Meaning, are you worried about something and that's what's doing it? Most of the time, they'll say there's some worries, but that's not the problem. The body just doesn't want to shut down at night. They're
Right. So
thinking
yeah,
about a
I'm kind of
lot of
worried.
things.
So let's say when I try to go to bed, it seems like my mind wakes up more. I
Yes.
start having all the thoughts of whatever has happened through the day, what I'm going to do the next day, and my mind becomes so active that although I'm trying to fall asleep and I'm tired, I can't fall asleep for long. I'm tossing and turning.
And I get that all the time. That's actually, when it comes to anxiety, that's the worst thing people will say. I can't go to sleep at night. I'm actually fearful of getting into bed. So now we start talking about the sleep time routine. What are you doing before you go to bed? So I always advise them, don't watch anything real exciting on television. Get off your cell phone and your electronics at least an hour before you go to
You know
bed.
how hard it is?
I know, and it's interesting when I suggest that one, they say this is what they come back with. Oh no, I need that to get tired. I said, yeah, that'd be great, but the mind doesn't work that way. You're engaging yourself in something that's neurologically actually accelerating a little bit.
And the biggest thing is I have a few patients who are like, relax while reading something on phone or playing some games that calms them down. And so they are engaged in those kind of things on the phone. And then TV also, like, people are watching TV till the last moment when they are kind of falling asleep. Because, like, there's a really, attractive TV program or a movie that they want to finish. And I struggle with that. So how would you help me, or how can I change that?
Well, I start with a sleep time program, so to speak. Sometimes it might mean teas and so forth that calm you down. For some people, it might be something like CBD or hemp oil. So that seems to be working for a lot of my patients today. Some people are on sleep aids. I really try to get them, try to say, well, before you get to the pharmaceuticals, let's go the natural route. But I find that if they start calming down an hour and a half before they get into bed. Start the teas at that time, an hour or so, 45 minutes before they go to bed. Take the CBD and the hemp. We're finding that the mind's starting to calm down a little bit. And I haven't found any, I found 2 people that didn't work well for. But when I looked at their habits before they went to bed, those were the folks that were playing games on their computer. And they weren't the calm you down kind of game. They were I'm online with somebody else doing it. And I said, well, now you're in a competition mode at that point. You're not going to calm down. I start helping them to get a program to decelerate and get them into a sleep
Yeah,
pattern.
yeah.
It works for most people. It helps everyone, some people much better than others.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Our minds are not like light switches. You cannot just turn on and off. The many switches. So you have to start closing one at a time, one at a time. And so it takes time for the brain to register that it's now sleep time. So start winding down. So you have to do the winding down activities before you go to sleep instead of active, 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 fall asleep. That doesn't work for the
Doesn't
brain.
work. And what I try to tell people is when you're changing these things, you're actually training your brain and your body to do something. There's a training period in there. And we all know learning is a function of repetition over time. So I tell them, just keep doing it. If you think I'm going to tell you this, and the next week you're going to go home and you're going to go right to sleep, that's not going to happen. I think we're working on about a month here because your brain's going to have to learn. Okay, it's 11 o'clock, whatever. I tone down now. I don't get into all these things. In fact, I use the example of a teenager I'm treating, and she wakes up every night about 2 o'clock. I said, "What do you do when you wake up?" She said, "I get on my cell phone to calm down." I said, "Every night?" "Yeah." "Do you wake up every night at 2 o'clock?" I said, "Yeah." Your mind has an alarm clock in its head to wake up to do a cell phone. You don't know that that's happening. You're going to have to sleep through that for a reasonable amount of time, and then your brain will phase that out. Many of us set our alarms for 6 or 7 o'clock, and once the brain learns it, you often get up before your alarm goes off because the brain is now interpreting that information. So, I'm teaching them this is going to take a while, but it will happen.
That's wonderful. So if I was a person who is anxious, the first thing you advise me is to start routine of sleep, stop like activating activities an hour or so before going to bed, and then try to wake up at the same time.
You
So good.
start there because that's how you're starting your day. So we start at the starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then I tell them to not overload their day with unreasonable amounts of things to do. We become a performance society. We this, and this all day, and then we rush from place to place that we don't have to rush to. So, we want to slow the pace of our mind down. And I do understand sometimes they're parents and you get up and you have to get kids ready and go to work and come home and go to the extracurricular activities and do homework. I got all that. I said, but don't overload it then with other things. You shouldn't feel in a position like I have to, because that's what does it. It's not doing the chores. It's that feeling of I must. That's where the anxiety comes from. So we try to slow it down and take things out of the schedule that don't have to be there. So that's the next thing. Slow down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I use the mantra saying, try to like flip the switch of the shift your thinking from I have to I would like to. Sometimes
Correct.
you have to kind of go reach in time, you have to drop your kid at the right time, or you have to be in a meeting or something like that. Of course, you would like to be in time, but instead of saying I have to be, you say I would like to. So then you don't, if have to or shoulds are like the guilt-provoking words. So if you do something, like if you should reach somewhere in time and you reach in time, you don't feel good because you should have done it anyways. But then if you don't, then you feel guilty. But if you change it to, I would like to, then you would like to reach in time. And so you feel good because you have done something you want to. And then if you don't feel that guilty. And
Exactly. And that's
so
where the anxiety comes from. I often say to them, let's make it practical. Make a list of the things for the week. Prioritize your list with these are the things that have to be done. These are the things I'd like to get to. And if you get to those, that's great. And if you don't, they can go on the list. You don't want to procrastinate, but on the other hand, let's not overload and get all those feelings.
mhm.
So that's the next thing I want to work with.
Sleep and eating regularly, then making the list and getting rid of unnecessary things. What else?
And then there's some self-care things. I say you should be able to program at least a little bit of time for yourself, not on a cell phone. It might be meditation, it might be yoga, it might be sitting in your hot tub, it might be exercise. But what are you doing on a daily basis just for you? And it only takes about 20 minutes. That's all you need. If you give yourself 20 minutes, even a half hour of me time, that would be great, because what you're really doing is you're disconnecting from all of that insanity, and you are decelerating, and you're saying, and your mind also says, okay, I did that. I made time for me and I actually accomplished that. And you try to do that every day. Some days you may miss, but you try to get that in there every day.
And the important thing is being on cell phone is not your me time.
It's not.
Because a lot of people are on Facebook and Instagram, and I know you think that you are giving time to yourself, but actually you're giving time to the media, and you get bombarded with that information. And so that's the third important thing, is give your me time. As we are talking about these techniques and of coming back to, we were talking about that these are coping tools for anxiety and how to fix your anxious mind. So can you tell me, does everybody have anxious mind? Is there any difference between people who struggle with anxiety versus not? And what is the difference between a normal anxiety and an anxiety disorder?
I don't think everyone experiences anxiety. I know people that it seems like they are not flat effect, but the same effect all the time. And then there are other people who react, their body just quickly reacts. And most of us have those things we react to. Some of us, and I always tell people, it's like your car idles. You know, you want to turn it off, but sometimes the key doesn't work and you just keep on idling. That's where anxiety is. It's always right below the surface. And it just takes a little trigger. And then we think, well, that's what made me anxious. And really, that was just what opened the door for you because the anxiety was there. That's why we're learning how to do all these things. The anxiety disorder, on the other hand, is always there. It's highly reactive. It's like it's sitting and waiting all the time, is what I tell people. And it also is something that people put in their minds. This, in the anxiety book I wrote, I try to tell them anxiety is not who you are, it's what you have. But we think about it, as I did as a young person, that's me. That's how I'm going to be. And then comes the panic attacks, and when you start to get panic attacks, then you fear them. You're apprehensive all the time. So that anxiety disorder, the differentiation I make is between it happening when something occurs versus it's lying in waiting and it's always there. That in a practical terms, that's how people understand it.
So what is the difference between a regular anxiety, like, person who's going for an exam, they may feel anxious. As a speaker, when I'm going on the stage, I feel anxious. When we get on these podcasts, there's a little amount of anxiety. And it's kind of almost, I feel like, necessary for us to prepare well for whatever you are doing. And so that sometimes feel like maybe it's a good anxiety or normal anxiety. So that's what I'm trying to figure out,
Okay.
or bring it out in a discussion for others, is how do you differentiate from the normal anxiety that may be actually helpful to you versus abnormal anxiety that could be harmful for you?
And the words I always use is the positive and negative. When you talked about, and I do the same, okay, I'm going to prepare for the podcast. And it feels like anxiety is going up, but it's just a little kick, I always say, a little energy kick that says, okay, now organize, get everything you need to do where you're supposed to do it, prepare. So when you sit down and you start talking, you're locked in and you're ready to go. Versus the negative anxiety, that anxiety disorder says, I can't do this. And I'm going to fail, or now I'm having a hard time getting myself into that situation. We go into doctors' offices, and some of us are just relaxed, and other people, the blood pressure goes way up, and all you're doing is walking in and talking to a physician, and they may take your heartbeat or whatever, those things, and prescribe something. You're not losing a limb here. So what happens is, and the way I look at it is right back to approach avoidance behavior. Good anxiety helps you approach, helps you go and prepare. The negative makes you want to run. And that's where that anxiety disorder comes from. And that often is a function of how intense it is in the body and how our minds are working with it.
So it's kind of disproportionate to the event that is triggering.
Absolutely.
And instead of helping you prepare and do better, it makes you do worse or not do it at all because of the fear.
Right.
And so then it becomes anxiety disorder. And then can you improve even if you have an anxious mind, a mind that is predisposed to having more severe reaction than others?
Absolutely. I have many people. I have 3 on my caseload now that came in, sent from physicians. Go there, you've got to learn some skills. Intense panic attacks, one woman twice a day, intense. They were thinking about hospitalizing her. I said, well, let's just hold on a minute. Let's get her on. They put her on some Ativan for a while. just to get the physical things down. And then we started working with all these coping things. We slowed her life down. We put a schedule into place. She got some physical things she's doing. So she's doing yoga and she's meditating. She has some self-care time that she never had in there before. The other thing I teach her and many all my people to do is to get your intellect over your emotion. You know, when something happens, it's those first 3 or 4 or 5 seconds that set the tone for how we're going to do it. And I said, what's happening is when that happens, there's the trigger. Your mind and body all of a sudden go like this, where I want to teach you to think of it the other way. Something happens and you say, I got this. I'm going to take care of this. Let me take a little break here, think about what I have to do, catch my breath. And when they start talking to themselves like that, now they're changing that internal language. I don't have any people right now who have come in my office with panic attacks and raw medicine that are still on the medicine.
So by applying some of these tools, people can actually get off their medication because now they have trained their mind and they have
Right.
changed their internal dialogue. And they may still have panic attacks sometimes, but then they're able to manage it better.
And that's what I tell them. And that's the key word. We want you to be able to manage your anxiety. When you manage it, it will give you the confidence and the self-esteem, and that'll actually take it down another notch for you. But that's what we want to do. If medicine is in the picture, that's fine. But medicine, I think, should be a last resort. You know, we should be able to do things naturally first. And I'm not averse to medicine for some people, but for most people, it's not necessary. It's just I tell people 30 years ago when I started practicing, 5% of my people came in the office on medicine. Today it's 70%. And I'm thinking we're becoming a bit of a drug culture here. We're quick fix. We want to can you give me this pill and I'll feel better? And I say yes, you will for a while until your body develops a tolerance. Then you'll have more medicine. And we still didn't get to the cause. So whatever's pushing it forward is going to keep on pushing it. I
Right.
think we're going backwards. Let's get to the cause first.
Yeah, yeah. Me being medication prescriber, I kind of see that all the time. My goal is to have people be on least amount of medication with least amount of side effect so that they can function the best. But the medication is like, something you give them acutely, allow the brain to be able to process and learn these tools and apply these tools so that they can get better and gradually taper off the medication.
And
So
that's
I
exactly what
totally,
I say medication should be used for. If you need it, let's give your mind enough time to process. It'll learn new things, then you'll be able to come off the medication, or it'll be needed, it'll be there as needed. Maybe you got a panic attack, you got a job, a new interview, whatever. Okay. But other than that, that's all.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So we're learning so many things and time is passing. I got a lot of tips today. My favorite tip from today's discussion was being on phone is not self-care. It's not me time. Let me ask the audience, what is your favorite tip from today's program? Please share in the comment below, send us a message. And if you found the value in this program, we have additional gift for you, which maybe make it even more helpful. So Dr. Ruggiero has been gracious to share an excerpt from his book, The Fix Yourself Handbook. If you like that gift, please go to happyandhealthymind.com and you can download this gift and all the other resources shared by our wonderful guest on this program for free. It is our gift for you as an appreciation for being a loyal follower. And if you love this program, show it by liking and subscribing. If you benefited from the program, guess what? Others will too. So we all want to make a difference. All you have to do is click the share button, and then others will benefit too, and you get to bask in the benefit too. So let me wrap up the program. Dr. Ruggiero, do you have a take-home message for our audience today?
I do, and it's my favorite take-home message. Actually goes back to what I said as I was learning about my own anxiety. We're all powerful people inside. Everything we need is already inside us. We just have to learn how to access that. Take some time to learn about yourself. Make that something you enjoy doing. This is not a chore. This is your life. You should enjoy improving the quality of your life. Go find those powers that are inside you. And it may be you that's teaching the rest of the world to do some things.
Wonderful, wonderful. And if people want to learn more about your work and your books, where can they reach you?
Best place to find me is on my website. It's my name, www.faustruggiero.com, FAUSTRUGGIERO.com.
Wonderful. Thank you. And so let me leave you guys with the one question. Every day is a new opportunity to make a change. What is one thing you choose to change today to decrease your worries and anxiety and live a calmer and happier life? Stay safe, happy, and healthy until next time. Dr. Rozina, thank you.